Muy buenos días para todos. Les damos la bienvenida a este primer evento que organiza nuestra Jefatura de Sostenibilidad, y damos también inicio a las jornadas de la sostenibilidad de nuestra universidad. Hoy tenemos un gran invitado que nos va a compartir el tema tan importante sobre el cambio climático. Voy a darle la palabra a Dina, quien va a presentar a nuestro invitado de hoy. De antemano, muchas gracias por todo su apoyo, por estar acá. Saben que estamos en esa tarea de ser una universidad más sostenible. Muchas gracias por estar.
Gracias, doctor. Bueno, bienvenidos todos. Nos acompaña hoy el doctor Ian Monroe. Él es de la Universidad de Stanford y él estudió ciencias y luego hizo su maestría en Stanford en ciencias, con énfasis en soluciones climáticas, microbiología, energía renovable y manejo de fuentes naturales. Él ha trabajado en diferentes organizaciones e instituciones que manejan recursos de energía, de bioenergía, ha sido consultor en sostenibilidad, en biomasa, energía, experto en clima, y actualmente tiene unos cursos, enseña cambio climático en la Universidad de Stanford, y especialmente habla de lo que es la sostenibilidad y las finanzas. Él también es fundador y CEO de Oreoco. Ahorita va a hablar de eso, que ganó un premio por conservación, pues por conservación del clima. Es una app que está en la web, que es abierta, en la que participan 170 países. Él va a hablar un poquito más de eso. Y también él es presidente de Edo Capital, que es un proceso que busca mirar la sostenibilidad más desde un punto de vista económico. Entonces nos acompaña aquí con esta conferencia. En esta conferencia nos va a hablar sobre el cambio climático más como una oportunidad. Bueno, muchas gracias a todos.
Bueno, muchísimas gracias a todos. ¿Y esto está funcionando? ¿Mejor? Bueno. Lo siento, pero el resto es en inglés. Es buena práctica para ustedes. Y tengo un poquito práctica en mi español ahorita. Mis diapositivos están en español. Se ve más. Y después de esto, tengo tiempo para algunas preguntas, si quieren. Bueno, the topic for today that I want to dive into is why do we care about climate change and how can we all be a solution to solving climate change? And as mentioned, I have kind of 3 roles. I teach courses on scaling up climate solutions at Stanford University. I also am a startup entrepreneur with 2 companies, a tech company called Oroeco, which makes it fun and easy and rewarding for all of us to track our impacts on climate change, and I'll talk more about that, and then scale up our own personal solutions to climate change. Okay. Yeah. And then, as mentioned, I also work on Etho Capital, which focuses on how can we shift our finances into climate solutions.
Bueno, me van a disculpar por esta primera parte, no me la contaba así, pero se trata más que nada de hablar de por qué es importante preocuparnos por el medio ambiente. Él está trabajando en Etho Capital, que cuenta cómo podemos transformar nuestros recursos para poderlos poner a producir de una manera más eficiente sin dañar al medio ambiente.
And I have lots of slides, so I will try to, I may have to skip some because it'll go a little bit slower with the translation.
Tiene muchas diapositivas, pero entonces me va a escapar algunas porque nos va a alargar la conferencia por tener que hacerlo traducido.
So the first question is, why care about climate change? Often when we talk about climate change, we think about it as an environmental problem. We think about polar bears and melting ice caps. But really, I care about climate change, and I would argue that all of you should care about climate change because it's much bigger than an environmental problem. It's really a human problem that connects up to our ability to survive as a human species on this planet.
Entonces, la pregunta es ¿por qué preocuparse por el clima? Y cuando hablamos de preocuparnos por el clima, vemos problemas del planeta y todo esto, pero va mucho más allá de ver a los osos polares muriéndose y todo esto, es plantearnos cómo eso nos conecta a nosotros con esto.
So, of course, with climate change and melting ice caps, that means sea level rise. And if we don't solve climate change, we could see, with all of the ice caps melting, sea level rise of more than 70 meters around the world, which would flood many of the largest cities around the world that are very close to sea level, places like Cartagena.
Entonces, con el hielo derritiéndose, vamos a enfrentar problemas como que el nivel del mar va a subir y vamos a ver ciudades que se van a hundir, ciudades como Cartagena.
But it's much more than sea level rise. Climate change, as you may already know, is impacting cycles of water, how rainfall connects up to cycles of drought, flooding, violent storms, and those in turn can connect up to things like wildfires and decrease food production, leading to famine, spread of infectious disease, and crime and war.
Pero es mucho más que el nivel del agua o del mar subiendo. Esto va conectado a ciclos de muchas cosas como tormentas, como sequías, como inundaciones, violencia, también enfermedad, muchas cosas que están como vinculadas a este ciclo.
And we're already starting to see these impacts all over the world. This is a map from the United Nations showing that really literally everywhere in the world, including here in South America, we're seeing impacts to our food supply, to ecosystems, impacts connected to increased violent weather, extreme weather, floods and droughts that are all connected to climate change.
Y también estamos viendo ya los impactos que está teniendo alrededor del mundo a nivel de disposición de la comida, del cambio del clima. Estamos viendo ya como lo fuerte que esto es.
And this is part of why I care about climate change, is I've had the opportunity to work around the world in now more than 30 countries, and I've made many friends along the way that are living in situations that are much, much more vulnerable now because of climate change.
Y esto es parte de por qué me interesa esto del cambio climático, porque además he hecho muchos amigos alrededor del mundo que están siendo tocados y son vulnerables frente a este fenómeno del cambio climático.
And I've also seen climate change impacts in my own backyard in California, where we're now having wildfires that are bigger and more destructive than we've ever seen in history. And the climate models predict that these fires could be 20 times worse if we don't solve climate change in the next few decades.
Y yo también vi personalmente los impactos del cambio climático en el patio de mi casa cuando un incendio se llevó todo. Y vamos a seguir enfrentando problemas con estos incendios forestales que pueden llegar a ser 20 veces más destructivos si no buscamos una solución ahora.
And this has been really personal for me, as now a little more than a decade ago, for the first time, my home burned down in a fire, and so I lost my family's home where I grew up, and 2 dogs and a cat died, and my family was lucky to barely make it out with their lives.
Y esto ya se vuelve muy personal para mí. Hace 10 años un incendio se llevó 2 perros y mi gato, y mi familia afortunadamente sobrevivió, pero nuestra casa se incendió.
And now, just last year in October, it happened again. We had a bigger wildfire than ever our community had seen, that burned more than 500 homes, killed 9 of my neighbors. It burned down our home for a second time and destroyed much of our community that we're still figuring out how to rebuild.
Y volvió a suceder el año pasado en octubre, cuando más de 500 casas se quemaron y destruyó casi por entero nuestra comunidad.
And this is what we have to expect with climate change, where the more we pollute with fossil fuels and deforestation and other things that put greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, the worse impacts we'll see related to droughts, wildfire, famine, food productivity issues, and of course other species in danger of extinction as well, with now 70% of the Earth's species in danger of extinction because of climate change and other human impacts, and our global food supply could go down by over 40% as well if we don't solve climate change.
Y esto es lo que está sucediendo si continuamos como vamos. Y vamos a seguir contaminando si seguimos utilizando energías que no son renovables. 70% ya de las especies están en peligro de extinción. vamos a seguir enfrentando hambrunas grandes si no revisamos la manera como estamos viviendo ahora.
So that's the bad news, is climate change is very serious, and it impacts not just the majority of the world's species, but really our ability to thrive as a human species. The good news is we now have essentially all the solutions that we need to solve climate change. It's really just a matter of putting those solutions into action. And in many cases, these solutions already save money, they're cheaper, easier, and actually have health benefits beyond climate as well, relative to the unsustainable systems that we currently have.
El cambio climático es algo bien serio, pero la buena noticia es que tenemos la solución, y es una solución que puede llegar a ser incluso más barata y más eficiente. Es simplemente tratar de aplicarla.
So let's first look at what's causing climate change. This is just a breakdown of greenhouse gases that are currently causing climate change, and you can see that about half are greenhouse gases, specifically carbon dioxide, connected up to our fossil fuel use for transportation and for electricity, heating and cooling. And then the other half is mostly connected up to our food supply and agriculture. It's carbon dioxide emissions from deforestation connected to agriculture, and from methane and nitrous oxide connected to agriculture, particularly connected to livestock and eating red meat and dairy products from cows and sheep.
Entonces veamos de dónde viene este cambio climático, y una gran parte de esto es la producción de dióxido de carbono producida por los combustibles fósiles, que tienen un gran porcentaje. También tenemos otro lado la deforestación y la decadencia de la biomasa, los gases metanos producidos por la industria alimenticia, entre otros.
So we will only solve climate change if we both solve the pollution from our energy system and we solve the pollution from our agriculture and land use.
Entonces, solo lo vamos a resolver si resolvemos el problema con el sistema de producción de energía y también de agricultura, teniendo una agricultura limpia.
This is a chart of all the climate pollution from around the world. And you can see, unfortunately, it is continuing to go up, with the largest increases actually now in the developing world, particularly developing Asia. So what we need to do is to figure out how to get all these emissions to zero. We need to not only stop the rise and decrease emissions, but we actually need to get fully down to zero emissions if we're going to solve climate change.
Y este es un cuadro que nos muestra cómo está impactando la manera en la que estamos viviendo, y como vemos las emisiones van en subida. Lo que necesitamos es que haya un decrecimiento, y no solo un decrecimiento, sino parar estas emisiones.
The good news is we do have all the solutions to do this already. We know how to remove the pollution out of our energy systems. We know how to remove the pollution out of our agriculture systems. This is a paper out of Sweden just showing that it's possible still to reduce climate change to the 1.5-degree target from the Paris Agreement, but it requires not just reducing our pollution from energy, agriculture, industry, etc., but also removing pollution that's already in the atmosphere through more sustainable land use that actually removes carbon and puts it into soils and into forests and other land use decisions.
Y la buena noticia es que tenemos la manera como reducir toda esta forma de contaminación, y lo debemos hacer
The last part is just a key piece of the puzzle is removing pollution that's already in the atmosphere and reducing that pollution by taking carbon dioxide that's in the atmosphere and putting it back into soils and into forests by having regenerative land use decisions.
Entonces, La manera como se puede lograr es tomando todo este CO2 que está arriba en el aire y poniéndolo de nuevo en la tierra y poniéndolo bajo la tierra para que produzca, fijarlo en la tierra. Sí.
And universities can be a great place to not just teach about climate solutions, but also act on climate solutions. And I've been impressed to see that you're already doing that in many ways here. So this is a list of what Stanford University is working on related to more climate sustainability on campus. And I know you're doing a lot of things. So we're looking at our energy supply, we're looking at our water use, our building and our campus, our transportation choices, our waste management, including compost and recycling, and then what food we're serving on campus and how sustainable that is.
Y es muy grato ver cómo ustedes están llevando a cabo modelos sustentables. Y aquí les tengo un cuadro de qué estamos haciendo en la Universidad de Stanford, que toca la manera de cómo producimos energía, el agua, cómo se construye, los medios de transporte, cómo se manejan los desechos e incluso la comida.
So taking these piece by piece, starting with renewable energy and energy efficiency, to take pollution out of our energy system, we both need to do things to make systems more energy efficient, just to use less energy to do the same things, and then decarbonize the energy that we're using, shifting it to electricity that's coming from 100% renewable energy, decarbonized energy, like energy from wind and solar and hydroelectricity. And the good news is these renewable energy sources increasingly are just becoming the cheapest energy sources, and even now cheaper than fossil fuels in many parts of the world.
Y una manera de hacer esto con eficiencia es utilizar menos energía para hacer las mismas cosas que hacemos normalmente, descarbonizar la energía utilizando energía limpia como la solar, la eólica, que es incluso mucho más barata.
So on campus at Stanford, two of the things that we've done to make our energy system more efficient and also more sustainable is we've installed this big heat transfer system called SESI that heats and cools buildings much more efficiently. And then we also have been installing solar panels all around campus, as I know you are here as well, and have also invested in a large solar power facility that's off campus. So now more than half of our energy is coming from renewable energy sources that have no climate pollution, with the majority of that coming from solar. And we've been able to reduce the greenhouse gas impacts of our energy system now by more than 68% compared to just a few years ago in 2011.
Entonces lo que hicimos en Stanford es implementar un sistema en el que el agua se limpia, es un sistema muy eficiente, y además se instalaron unos paneles solares que producen más de la mitad de la energía que se consume en la universidad para garantizar que se está utilizando energía limpia.
And this system also is saving the university lots of money. This system over the next 35 years will save more than $430 million.
Y esta es una manera también de ahorrar mucho dinero. A la universidad le ahorró más de
430 million.
Más de 430 millones de dólares.
And we're trying to figure out how to go even further to shift the campus now to 100% renewable energy.
Y ahora estamos tratando de ir más allá, tratando de volver todo nuestro campus 100% utilizando energías libres de polución.
And then another piece of the climate puzzle is how do we take out the climate pollution connected to transportation? And the most important thing to do there is to shift our transportation away from fossil fuels to electricity, and ensure, of course, that electricity is also coming from zero pollution energy sources like renewables. So that's the biggest piece with transportation, is just electrifying everything that we can at the same time as we're shifting to renewable energy and decarbonizing our energy supply.
Y otra gran pieza de este rompecabezas es el transporte y cómo modificar esta manera de transportarnos y utilizar transporte que utilice la electricidad y que encima se descarbonice o que se borre la huella de carbono que estamos utilizando a la hora de transportarnos.
And the good news is electric vehicles are very quickly just becoming cheaper than gasoline vehicles, and most analysts now predict that electric vehicles produced by companies like Tesla, combined with 100% renewable energy, will just be the best, cheapest option for most drivers sometime within the next 5 to 7 years.
Y la buena noticia es que estos vehículos eléctricos son más baratos y tienen un buen rendimiento, entonces es una manera de transportarse y de no contaminar.
And then this is a picture of the Hyperloop, which Tesla's founder Elon Musk has also worked on, along with a number of my friends who are engineers there, which is an electric train that travels in a vacuum tube that 2 companies are now working on building that will go up to 1,200 kilometers per hour and could travel the distance between San Francisco and Los Angeles, for example, in only about 35 minutes, which is currently a distance that it takes about 7 hours to drive.
Y este es uno de los proyectos que se tiene, es un tren que se llama el Hyperloop, que puede ir a más de 1.200 kilómetros por hora, que se podría ir, con el cual se podría ir de una distancia como San Francisco a Los Ángeles en solo 35 minutos, que tomaría mucho más tiempo si se va en automóvil.
And then on campus at Stanford, as I've seen you're doing on campus here as well, what we're doing to support electric vehicles is installing charging stations around campus so that people are encouraged to shift to an electric car if they're driving to campus. And we also have incentives for taking public transportation. And once you're on campus, we try to make campus as friendly for bicycles and walking as possible. And that's the main way that people get around campus is bicycling and walking.
Y lo que estamos haciendo en Stanford es algo parecido a lo que ustedes están haciendo aquí, es establecer estaciones eléctricas para que la gente que tiene vehículos eléctricos pueda cargarlos. Además estamos motivando, incentivando a las personas para que usen más vehículos como la bicicleta y que caminen más.
So another thing that we need to do to solve climate change is to really stop all deforestation and actually shift, so we're reforesting areas that already have been deforested and storing carbon in the ground. And universities can be a good training place for both monitoring deforestation rates and coming up with new models to support reforestation efforts and forest conservation.
Y otra manera es también parar la deforestación y sembrar más. Es un nuevo modelo que se está implementando y que puede ayudar mucho.
And much of our deforestation is connected to our food supply and our agriculture. And universities also can be a great example of how to shift to more sustainable food. This is looking at the carbon footprint of different foods. Here's lamb, and here's beef and cheese, compared with vegetables or meats like chicken or tuna. Unfortunately, because of the methane pollution connected up to beef, lamb, and other red meat and dairy, they have a much, much higher impact on climate change. And so part of what we need to do to decarbonize our food supply is to shift from eating high carbon foods like beef hamburgers and shift towards eating lower carbon foods like vegetables and chicken, if you still want to eat meat, is actually a pretty low carbon meat.
Y otra manera como la deforestación está conectada es la manera como producimos alimentos, y aquí tenemos un cuadro que nos muestra cuánto carbono puede producir lo que comemos. Vemos que tenemos las carnes rojas como el cordero, la res, pasando por los lácteos, y vemos que si lo comparamos con la producción de vegetales es mucho menos la huella de carbono que se deja. Entonces sería como cambiar a comer un poco menos de carne roja o cortarla y consumir más vegetales, por ejemplo.
And diet can be one of the hardest things because it's very personal. But we are now, through different companies, working on ways of making something that tastes just like a hamburger. There's this company called Impossible Foods that has lots of funding from Bill Gates, among others, that is now making something that looks just like ground beef called the Impossible Burger, but it's made entirely out of plants. It even has what looks like blood, but it's coming entirely from plants, and it has a much lower carbon footprint than a typical hamburger, but tastes very similar.
Y la dieta es una cuestión bastante personal, sabemos que es difícil. Y también entonces está esta compañía que se llama Impossible Foods, con la cual está Bill Gates implicado, en la que están creando productos que saben como carne, pero que están producidos netamente por vegetales.
And on campus at Stanford, we're both trying to serve more sustainable food choices in our dining halls, and we also have a farm that is part of campus where students research and implement and get to experiment with different types of more sustainable farming practices.
Y en nuestro campus también tenemos una manera de producir la comida de una manera más sostenible. Tenemos una granja en la que trabajamos todo esto y estamos produciendo en un modo que no contamine tanto.
So I'll quickly go through some of these slides because I think we need to wrap up in about 10 minutes, right?
Entonces rápidamente me voy a mover entre estos diapositivos porque tenemos como 10 minutos y hay mucho por decir.
So another important thing to decarbonize systems, including on campuses, is our waste, reducing waste to begin with, and then shifting to composting and recycling, which I know you're also doing here on campus.
Entonces otra manera de decarbonizar o bajar la huella de carbono que dejamos es simplemente revisando cómo producimos, la manera en la que producimos basura y recurrir al reciclaje.
And everything that we can do to be more efficient in industrial processes usually is also good for climate. For example, our food system in the US, and this is true in a lot of the rest of the world, over 40% of the food that we produce gets wasted, either at the farm or at the supermarket, or once people buy it, it goes bad, or they cook it and they don't eat it. So a big piece of making our food system more sustainable is just having much less waste in that system.
Y otra manera de lograrlo es creando procesos industriales mucho más eficientes. En un país como Estados Unidos, el 40% de la producción de alimentos simplemente se pierde, entonces es buscar la manera en la que se desperdicien menos.
How many of you in your classes talk about life cycle assessment science and how to calculate the impacts of different types of industrial processes?
En las clases de ustedes, ¿quién habla de cómo podemos calcular la huella que dejamos de carbono en el planeta? En clase, ¿quién lo ha hablado?
So that's another big piece of where universities can be part of the solution, is looking at the life cycle assessment science that then informs better industrial processes, but you know that already because you're studying it.
Entonces, otra manera en la que podemos contribuir es que las universidades se vinculen en la forma en cómo la industria toca y puede contribuir o degradar esto del cambio climático.
And then, of course, what we need to do is not just research better solutions to climate change and implement them on college campuses like here, but we also need to make sure that we're voting for leaders who will be implementing those solutions as politicians, as part of governments, or as leaders of companies.
Y no solo se trata de buscar mejores soluciones en el campo académico de cómo lo vamos a hacer, es también la responsabilidad de votar por personas que sí van a implementar estas soluciones que se están proponiendo.
But governments alone and companies themselves can't solve climate change. It really does matter what we do with our everyday actions. We need to figure out how to scale up solutions to climate change through personal actions, because it really does make a difference all of our choices that we all are making as individuals each day, what we buy, what we eat, how we decide to get around, what our home energy choices are, all of these connect to this climate challenge that we have.
Entonces, los gobiernos y las corporaciones por sí solos no van a poder resolver este cambio climático. Es más, también algo que tiene que venir de nuestras opciones personales, de lo que compramos, de cómo comemos, de cómo vivimos. Es una opción también muy personal y depende de cada uno de nosotros.
So a lot of my time beyond Stanford is trying to decide and figure out solutions to bridge this gap that we almost have. Almost all of us have, I would say all of us have, myself included, between what we say we care about related to climate change, poverty, other sustainability impacts, and then what we actually do every day.
Entonces hay una brecha muy grande entre lo que decimos, cómo esto está impactando a nuestro planeta y lo que hacemos.
So one of my roles, as mentioned beyond Stanford, is founding a tech company called Oroeco that tries to make it fun and easy and rewarding for all of us to both calculate our impacts on climate and then get suggestions for how we can improve and turn that all into a social game so we can compare and collaborate and compete with our friends and family and other users around the world.
Entonces uno de mis roles también es, soy el presidente de Oroeco, que es una aplicación que nos ayuda a medir nuestros impactos en el medio ambiente y nos da sugerencias también de cómo podemos mejorar, y se convierte en una especie de juego social en la que nos podemos colaborar todos para poder mejorar la situación.
And the good news is we give more than, or now about 50 actions that you can take as an individual to improve your impacts on climate. And many of these things simply save money and lead to healthier, happier lives. And we found that the average American family, and I'm sure this would be true as well in most other parts of the world, including here in Colombia, can save a substantial amount of money. In the US, it's more than $11,000 over 10 years or $1,000 per year, while simultaneously reducing climate impacts by more than 20% through decisions related to eating a more healthy, sustainable diet and having more sustainable, efficient transportation and home energy choices.
Entonces hay más de 50 acciones que se pueden hacer, que cada uno de nosotros puede hacer y que nos pueden ahorrar mucho dinero, que nos pueden garantizar una vida más feliz y saludable. Está mostrado que un ahorro de más de $11.000 estadounidenses en 10 años, y esto se muestra a nivel de una familia estadounidense normal, pero también puede aplicar para la gente aquí.
And many of these actions can also translate into whatever you decide to do in your career. And I think it's important to think about sustainability as something that really intersects every type of job. Every job can be a green, sustainable job, regardless of what you decide to do. Whatever company or organization or government you're working with has all sorts of choices that are made every day that connect up to climate change and sustainability. So having a good understanding of sustainability science and continuing to network with your peers really is something that can translate to better impacts on the planet regardless of what you decide to do in your career.
Entonces, muchas de estas acciones pueden estar conectadas con nuestra profesión y con lo que hacemos, no importa la profesión que escojamos, lo que estemos estudiando, la compañía en la que, o la organización en la que termines trabajando. Todo puede tener un impacto positivo en el planeta que nos puede garantizar mejores maneras de trabajar y de conectarnos.
And for those of you that will go on and make lots of money, as I'm sure many of you will, another important piece is to make sure that we invest in solutions to sustainability and climate change. And my other company, Etho Capital, is showing that you can invest in climate solutions and actually make more money than conventional approaches.
Y otra de las cosas que me imagino que a todos ustedes les interesa es ganar dinero, y hay otra manera de hacerlo. Otro de mis proyectos se llama Capital, que lleva a las personas como a invertir de una manera más sustentable su dinero y hacer mucho más dinero. Ya está demostrado que se puede ganar más.
So this is just a chart showing the performance, how much money that the fund that we've made in more efficient, sustainable companies, and this fund we don't invest in oil, gas, or coal companies or companies associated with animal cruelty, tobacco, prisons, etc. And we've substantially made more money than the stock market while also substantially improving sustainability.
Este es un cuadro que nos muestra que la manera de producir de una forma limpia, distinta a la de industrias como el alcohol, el tabaco y entre otras, es mucho más rentable y produce más.
And now on campus at Stanford, we have over 80% of students have voted to push the university to divest the university's endowment and move that money out of fossil fuel companies and other dirty industries and into sustainable solutions.
Entonces, también en Stanford vimos que un 80% de los estudiantes votaron para que se dejara de invertir tanto dinero en la producción y en el trabajo con combustibles fósiles.
A couple other things that I think you're probably already starting to look at with your different programs here that is important for climate is an understanding that even if we reduce our emissions to zero as quickly as possible, we still have very serious climate impacts ahead. Violent storms, disruptions to our food supply, sea level rise, that at this point already are baked in. The faster we solve climate change, the better off we'll be, the less bad these problems will be, but we still do have really serious climate problems ahead. So researching how we can be more resilient and adaptive is also an important piece where universities can help with this climate challenge.
Y otra de los, incluso si bajáramos nuestras emisiones a cero, o tenemos igual un reto muy grande que implica lo que está sucediendo ahora, las tormentas violentas, las hambrunas, el nivel de los océanos subiendo. Eso nos lleva a ser más resilientes y a buscar maneras de adaptarnos a la situación actual.
And many of these impacts are felt most strongly by poor communities who can't afford to adapt and adjust. And so for me, this is part of what inspires me to work on climate change, is I see it really as the world's biggest social justice issue. That if we don't solve climate change, we're never going to solve poverty, and we're never going to solve problems connected to violence, conflict, and war.
Y uno de los impactos más grandes se dan en las poblaciones pobres, entonces una manera grande de hacer justicia social es también trabajando en este asunto de resolver el problema del cambio climático.
Another positive tool that we have now is this ability to share information and inspiration around the world. This is a picture of a journalist in China who created a video, social media video about impacts of pollution in China, and within just a weekend she had more than 200 million views. That really has disrupted the conversation around pollution and the environment in China.
Y otra manera que es muy simple y es una herramienta que tenemos es simplemente compartir la información y la inspiración a través de las redes sociales. Nos cuenta de esta reportera china que creó un reportaje que tuvo más de 200 millones de visitas en solo un fin de semana, en el que hablaba sobre la contaminación y cómo eso afecta su vida diaria.
So we have now this amazing tool at our disposal that's really a hyper-connected supercomputer and a magic wand that allows us to connect with anyone in the world and share inspiration and motivation for solving this problem collectively at the speed of light. And I think we really need to realize the power that we have for connecting information with motivation and inspiration. And regardless of what you decide to do in your career, a big piece of what we need to do is how do we how do we figure out how to collectively all work together on this challenge? Because we have to be collectively working together if we have any hope of solving the challenge.
Entonces tenemos esta pequeña herramienta en nuestras manos que es como un mini computador que nos permite estar conectados a todos y con el cual podemos compartir información, motivación, inspiración. Sin importar lo que decidas hacer, tu carrera o tu profesión, tenemos que trabajar de manera colectiva para hacer un cambio significativo.
So for me, why I'm passionate about solving climate change and what brings me to come down here for the week and volunteer my time to share information is a combination of fear, hope, and love. I'm afraid. This is pictures of my family's farm where everything you see now is burned. And I was driven by fear that could happen. That made me start working on climate change to begin with. That fear, unfortunately, has come true. The nightmare has happened where all this is burned. And I'm afraid that more and more places around the world will experience similar situations.
Entonces, algo que me motivó, porque yo soy un apasionado de hablar sobre el cambio climático vengo aquí haciendo un trabajo voluntario, yendo a distintas partes del mundo, es también lo que sucedió en mi granja y es como el miedo de que esto no vuelva a suceder y que no le suceda a nadie más y que no suceda en otros lugares del mundo.
But I also have hope that we now have resilient, regenerative solutions that can prevent this from happening again. And I have hope that all of us, including all of you in the room, will be continuously coming up with not just better technologies and policies, but better means of communicating and sharing through information technology and just conversations the urgency of this issue and the fact that we have solutions to prevent climate problems from harming people and places we love all around the world.
También tengo la esperanza de que además todas las personas, todos los seres humanos, incluyéndolos a ustedes que están aquí en este salón, no solo trabajes en la implementación, el desarrollo de tecnologías o investigación, sino en hablar y compartir para trabajar en la prevención de que todas estas cosas tan terribles sucedan.
So these are just a few of my friends that I've made while traveling that continue to motivate me to work on climate change all around the world. And it's a reminder that we all are in this together. We're all on this little spaceship Earth and sharing the same planet, whether or not we share the same language or we share the same national borders. If we're not working together on the solution, we are in really serious trouble. But the good news is the solutions are there, they're always getting better, they're always getting cheaper, and in many cases, they're cheaper and easier than what we're already doing. And we have no time to lose, because if we don't work on scaling up solutions now, there's just much less hope for the future.
Bueno, y esta es una foto de mis amigos que he hecho viajando alrededor del mundo. Es como un recordatorio para mí de que todos estamos juntos compartiendo este planeta en el que vivimos todos sin importar las fronteras entre países, y es también una aliciente que me ayuda a sentir que tenemos que buscar soluciones rápido para salvar esta situación, este planeta.
But I really do have hope that we'll get there. If you'd like to stay in touch, there's my contact information. And thank you again for being part of this climate community and community of action just by showing up. And let's all go out and solve this great challenge together.
Muchísimas gracias por venir.
Sí, ya es más de tiempo, pero si quieres puedo hablar con ustedes después también. Gracias otra vez y ya.